Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast. We cover everything Major League from spring training to the World Series. We've got your favorite club covered from New York to Boston to LA. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast.
Welcome into another edition of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kevin Mahalik. It is Thursday, April 8th, and we got a lot to discuss with you guys. A lot has happened since Sunday night, my last recording, talking to you guys on Monday. We got a couple of contracts to talk about, some trades to talk about. A lot of injuries have taken place over the first week of the regular season. And then we have some takeaways. Now that teams are getting 5-6 games in here, what's going on the first week? Where do we stand? What are the surprises going on out there? And there's a lot to talk about, and that's just that's the best about Major League Baseball. It always surprises you. There's always something going on here, both good and bad early on in the year. But jumping right into it, today's episode, let's talk about Fransisco Lindor. Since I talked to you guys last, it has come out that he signed a 10-year, $341 million extension with the New York Mets, which now means he will be under contract for the next 11 seasons. As this extension kicks in next year, he will be making $22.3 million this year and then averaging AAV just over 34, of course, moving forward over the next 10. But this really came out of nowhere. This was kind of a fascinating negotiation to follow along with. If you follow Jeff Passan on Twitter, some of the other guys on Twitter, Fransisco Lindor had kind of put his own personal deadline on the negotiations being opening day. And this happened the day before the night of, before, whatever you want to say, basically, of opening day. And just hours before the contract was announced, it was stated that the Mets had offered a 12-year, $320 million deal, and you knew this wasn't going to get it done because just weeks earlier, Fernando Tatis Jr. signed a 14-year, $340 million deal. And you know Lindor wasn't going to take less money than Fernando Tatis Jr. just based on the accolades he's had during his career. I mean, the guy has the top stats, the top career accolades, again, all-stars, gold gloves, whatever you want to call it. He's got more in his closet than Tatis does in his living room. So, you know the guy was going to make more than Tatis Jr., and Lindor had countered with a 10-year, $380 million deal. And again, the word was that Lindor was not coming off of this number. His teammates, such as Pete Alonso, were coming out saying, I hope he gets $400 million. The guy's worth it, and just he's been fantastic. So all of a sudden, Jeff Passan comes out and basically says, hey, the Mets aren't moving, Lindor's not moving. And then out of nowhere, about a half an hour later, it comes out that these guys have agreed to a contract at $341 million. And once again, that extra $1 million is not by coincidence. It is now Lindor. That's number 3 on the highest paid all-time money of the contract. $341 is third all-time when it comes to Major League Baseball, moving Tatis Jr. down to 4th. He'll be higher on the average annual value because Harper and some of these other guys took more years, like Tatis, so his AAV is a little bit lower than Lindor's will be. So ultimately, it keeps both sides happy. Lindor is a very well-paid man now. He will be in New York City for the next 10 years, and ultimately now the conversation turns to, well, there's a couple of different conversations to have. The first one is Fransisco Lindor now the face of New York City? And you guys listening in New York City out there, you're probably Yankees fans saying, hey, no Met is ever going to be the face of New York City. Even when they were going to the World Series, there wasn't a face of New York City baseball being the New York Mets. But Lindor could be that guy. I mean, the kid plays with a ton of energy. He's a ton of fun to watch. He's got a fantastic smile. He plays with joy, energy, passion, all of that. And you look at the Yankees side of things, and Giancarlo Stanton always gets hurt a little bit. Aaron Judge gets banged up a little bit. There really isn't that guy to kind of stake the claim to face of the New York Yankees besides Garrett Cole, and I don't think he wants to be the face of New York City. So I think Francisco Lindor could pretty much become the face of New York, and internally, almost become the face of baseball. You got Mike Trout out on the West Coast, Fernando Tatis Jr. out on the West Coast. These guys are playing late at night. Guys like myself aren't staying up till 10 o'clock to see these guys play day in and day out. And if we are, it's probably for one, maybe two at-bats here. But I'll be watching Lindor all the time. The Mets are always going to be on ESPN now, on national television, just due to their market, their time frames. Wednesday night baseball, they were on ESPN against the Phillies here Tuesday night. I was able to watch them while I was traveling for work. So you're going to see Lindor probably get some sponsorships, some commercials, and continue to get endorsements moving forward. It'll really be fascinating to see how this kind of plays out, and he continues to grow his brand as well as the Mets brand moving forward. And the other conversation you have here is, what does this do for the rest of the shortstop market? Well, this is obviously good news for all the shortstops that are going to be free agents after this year. The big names, the top four, are Corey Seager, Trevor Story, Carlos Correa, and Javier Baez. And then you have Trey Turner of the Washington Nationals becoming a free agent after next year. So you have 5 guys within the next 2 off seasons who are going to hit the open market. Now, are any of these guys going to get or top the Lindor money, just because that's typically what happens, like quarterbacks in the NFL? Maybe you're not better than the previous guy, but if you're the next man up, you have to continue to reset the market, continue to increase the market, and have it move forward. But I don't think that's the case. I mean, Lindor is the youngest out of all of them, or right there. He's 27 years old. Again, multiple Gold Gloves, multiple All-Stars, and, Javi Baez. Each one of these guys have been an All-Star at least at some point in their career, but none of them kind of have that swag or that aura that Lindor really carries with him when it comes to a day in and day out basis. Now, do I think they could get somewhere around $300 million? Absolutely. Carlos Correa was offered right around $300 or $280, depending on the reports you read, right before the season. And he said no thank you to the Astros at that level of money. Now, I think he thinks he's going to be getting right around $340 million. I don't see him getting that high. I think he ultimately comes in around $310, $315, $320, somewhere along those marks. Personally, out of all of these guys, I would pay Javier Baez the most amount of money. If I had to rank these guys and ultimately where they're going to fall when it comes to total dollars received, I would think that Baez would be the top guy. Carlos Correa would be second in line. After him would be Corey Seager, and then you would have Trevor Story and Trey Turner. Now, Trey Turner, again, has 2 years until he hits the market, and if he continues to light it up, continues to develop, he could certainly increase up that list. But just based off kind of their career up until this point, what they've done, all these guys are going to be under the age of 30. I don't think they reach that 10-year mark because they're right around 30, so you really don't want to go until like age 40. If you're a general manager, again, Lindor being 27, he'll go until he's 38, which is really on the high end. So I see some 8-year deals, $280 million. Again, Correa wants that $310. Baez could probably get around that $310. And I think Story, Seager, and Turner come in around that $275 to $290 mark when it's all said and done this offseason. But it also determines, how many fans get into the stands. Do we continue to increase attendance? Does the vaccine continue to roll out? Do teams, are they able to continue to generate revenue? Are they able to make money this year? Are they still crunching dollars? Are they still cutting back? Last offseason, we would have said JT Realmuto would have gotten more money than he did this offseason. But the Mets, they basically blew everybody out of the water. Again, they spent a ton of money this offseason. They traded for some guys. They signed some guys. McCann, of course, Lindor they traded for and then signed, and, Stroman's coming back. So they basically spent more money than everybody else, but I don't think there's a lot of individuals with that type of owner or a lot of teams with that type of owner that are going to be willing to spend $310 on these guys unless they know that there's going to be full stadiums moving forward. We're out of that pandemic and continuing to grow and develop, that bottom dollar, because that's really what it comes down to when you're a general manager. And with multiple guys on the market at the same time, you're going to have the leverage as the team, right? You're going to be talking to Carlos Correa. He's going to say, I want 320, and you're just going to say, okay, well, we'll sign Trevor Story instead for 280. We'll sign Corey Seager for 285. We're not going to give you 320. We're going to wait for Trey Turner to come on the market and give him 270. So you can sit out there at home without a job, or you can come play for us for 290, and it's going to be fascinating to kind of see where the leverage is when it comes to teams, individuals, and how they're able to play that off each other. But Lindor gets paid $341. He's going to be a Met for 10 years. As a Phillies fan, I'm kind of twisted internally because I love watching the guy play. I love his energy. I think he's fantastic. So, again, that's like positive that I get to see him all the time playing against the Phils. But the negative's the same point, right? He's going to be playing against the Phils the entire time. So I'm going to have to watch him beat up the Phillies, and people think he could be Hall of Fame caliber. And now with 10 years wearing a Mets hat, he may be wearing a Mets hat into Cooperstown, which would certainly be frustrating moving forward. But, man, Lindor gets paid, and he gets one more than Tatis Jr. That certainly made me laugh. But now let's talk about some trades that took place. I got to be honest with you guys. I didn't think I'd be talking trades 1 week into the season. It's like, what the heck's going on? Did they just not know this was happening before the year? Were these people that were going to get cut? Like, what happened? And then Rougned Odor from the Texas Rangers, he got traded to the New York Yankees. And this one kind of caught me by surprise because, Odor, he had some good years in Texas, but he's really fallen off recently. So he hit, let's see here, he had batting averages of 261, 271, and then he got himself a nice contract. I believe it was 6 years, $50 million, which has turned out to, not be a good contract from the Rangers' perspective, because in the subsequent seasons, he's hit 204, 253, 205, and 167. Now, he's always had the power. He's got 330 home run seasons. He hit 33 and 30 back-to-back years in 16 and 17, and then in 2019 had 30 home runs and 93 RBIs. But he also struck out 178 times and hit 205. So the guy was the stereotypical long baller strikeout, new age sabermetrics type of analytic movement here in baseball. But from the Yankees' perspective, there's probably not a better stadium for him to play half of his games in. The way that Yankee Stadium is absolutely a launching pad for left-handed hitters, and Odor is essentially a pool-happy launch guy, it's a good move to improve their bench, and it gives them a little bit more depth for what they're looking for. Now, money became a question, and as details are continuing to come out, it looks like the Yankees are only going to be paying him around league minimum this year, and the Rangers are going to be footing a lot of that bill to trade him up to New York. So he's going to join the bench up there in New York. Brett Gardner, Higasaki, Tachman. It looks like Tyler Wade is going to be the odd man out going back to the minors because he's got an option left. So they can send him down to the minors without the potential of losing him moving forward. And the Rangers get a couple of arms, an outfielder. And in return here, let's see, we got Josh Stowers going back. He's an outfielder, right-handed kid, 6 foot, 200 pounds, but he hasn't played above the high A level. Again, 2020 did not have a minor league season, so a lot of these guys haven't played it over a year, but at A ball, he hit 273, 7 home runs, 40 RBIs. He then played in the Arizona Fall League that year, so he's got potential upside. When it looks like he's only 24 years old, he was a second-round pick of the Mariners back in 2018. He was dealt to the Yankees as part of the 3-team trade with Sonny Gray and the Reds. So, he's got some power, it's just some upside, right? But according to the scouts, they don't think he's going to max out as more than a fourth outfielder in his big league level. And then they also got Antonio Cabello. Cabello's listed as a catcher and an outfielder, but he's only played the outfield in his minor league career. He was listed as the Yankees' 18th best prospect The scouts say he has the tools to be both a center fielder and a catcher. He got signed out of Venezuela for $1.4 million in 2017. He's only 20 years old, but he hasn't played above rookie ball. So both of these guys, A-ball, rookie ball, pretty much lottery tickets going back to Texas. And as well as they know, hey, they're not going to pay Odor based on their, their window. They're rebuilding, and it's going to be a few years before they really compete in the AL West once again. And then the other trade we had was between the Milwaukee Brewers and the Atlanta Braves. And this one was really fascinating because this one was between guys on the 40-man roster. Did they really start off that bad that you had to ship them out here 1 week in? And the big name was Orlando Arcia. He was once a top 10 prospect in all of baseball, but starts this year off 1 for 11 and basically gets shipped out of town. And you're really looking at the Brewers, and they just have other options when it comes to the positions. Luis Urias is going to be the preferred guy at shortstop for the Brewers moving forward. Arcia was playing a little bit of third base, but Travis Shaw is going to be the guy at third base. So they shipped him down to Atlanta, but Atlanta has Dansby Swanson. So he's not going to be playing every day in Atlanta. He's going to be rotating, utility guy. Maybe this pushes Pablo Sandoval off the roster, back into the minor leagues. Johan Camargo potentially could get sent down. So it'll just be fascinating to see because Arcia, he just can't get things going, man. He again, top 10 prospect in all of baseball, really struggling, and now he's a bench guy in Atlanta. Maybe Atlanta can figure it out, get him to recognize that swing and swing at good pitches. But Milwaukee receives a couple of arms coming back the other way. They got Patrick Weigel, who made his debut in 2020 for the Braves, only threw in one game for 2/3 of an inning, but again, on the 40-man roster, and Chad Sabatica going that way as well. He's been up for 3 years. He had an ERA of 1.88 back in 2018, had a fantastic debut. 2019 did not go so well, 6.2 ERA in 29 innings, and then last year gave up 5 runs in 3 innings. So the Brewers bring on a couple of bullpen arms, trying to get some guys and add some depth to that bullpen. In Atlanta, looks at Arcia, sees that potential there, and thinks that they can get more out of him coming off the bench and potentially a new environment. So 2 trades within the first week. Fascinating to see here. The Yankees add Odor, the Braves add Arcia, the Brewers add a couple of arms, and of course Francisco Lindor getting paid and having himself a nice, healthy career to look forward to here in New York City. But that'll do it for segment number 1 of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kevin Mahalik. We'll step aside here now for a word from one of our sponsors and one of our sister shows. But when we come back, we're going to talk about the injuries piling up in Major League Baseball. So stick around, everyone. We'll be right back after this.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Welcome back, and thanks for listening to the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kevin Mahalik. Hopefully you guys are having a fantastic work week out there. We're cruising right along. It is Thursday. We're getting ready for another weekend here. An off day for some Major League teams after a week of baseball. The Phillies are off today, and some others. I saw the schedule aligns, but we have baseball every day from here on out. And it's a lot of fun to follow along. So we're going to get into the standings and discuss some of the surprises coming up here. But for now, I wanted to keep you guys up to date on injuries. Before we get into the injuries, though, do me a favor. Check us out on social media. Head to Twitter, GSMC Baseball Podcast. Head to Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. check us out there. That helps us continue to grow. Spread the word. Share us with your friends as baseball's coming at you hot and heavy now. You guys can stay up to date with all the latest information following the GSMC Baseball Podcast online. I certainly appreciate it here. But a ton of injuries across the board in Major League Baseball. I mean, I'm going to talk about some of the bigger names when it comes to the injuries out there, giving you guys some updates. But if you go to MLB transactions, there's just a ton of moves happening when it comes to 10-day injured lists, ads going on. And, I mean, man, we don't have enough time to get into everything going on, but I'm going to do my best to give you guys here during this segment an update on the biggest names. Like I said, Aaron Judge, the New York Yankees. He was out of the lineup here Wednesday against the Orioles as he is battling, quote, general soreness in his side. And I'm going to be honest with you guys. I mean, how do you just get sore on your side? Like, there's no such thing as general soreness on your side unless you got hit by a baseball or you ran into a wall at home or he got hit by a bike on the street during the day, earlier in the day. Like, I mean, he's not old enough to, like me, just get up in the morning and just have a crank in your neck because you slept incorrectly the night before. I mean, the guy's a peak physical athlete in the prime of his career, and he just has general soreness in his side. So that I'm not buying that when it comes to Aaron Boone, his manager. That's obviously some sort of oblique strain or some sort of muscle tweak. That's going to take probably a week or two for the inflammation to go down. Get some stim, get some ice, get some ultrasound, and kind of get yourself right. But general soreness is just the baseball terminology for hockey, saying that he has an upper body injury or a lower body injury, when basically they don't give you anything. They're just telling you that, he tweaked a muscle. We don't know exactly which one it is. We're hoping he's going to be okay in a day or two. He's going to have to get an MRI eventually to figure out exactly what's wrong with him, but I don't know what it is right now, so I can't tell you, is what Aaron Boone basically translated from general soreness in his side to Aaron Judge. But Yankees fans cannot be happy. I have a couple of buddies who are Yankees fans posting stuff on Facebook about, well, Aaron Judge almost made it one complete week before he got hurt during the regular season. And, you know, him, Stanton, the big bombers up there in New York just continue to have aches and pains, missing time, and it really affects the Yankees, and they just can't get on a roll, can't get hot, because they don't have their two big guys in the middle of that lineup routinely going at it for him up there. So a tough blow for Yankees fans in New York City once again, but Aaron Judge expected to miss a little bit of time here, and I'll be surprised if he returns to the lineup day in and day out here by the weekend moving forward. Now, if you're a Dodgers fan, a little bit of concern for you guys. Mookie Betts is dealing with a stiff back. Came in Wednesday. He was out of the lineup against the A's due to a tight back. When the player doesn't feel well, he's not going to play. The plan was to run him out there, but depending on the feeling in the schedule, we'll pick some off days. That's what manager Dave Roberts said. And now Mookie's had 2 off days in about a week here. So, really not a good start for Mookie Betts. He's 8 for 23, which, again, right around 300, right? 2 stolen bases, 6 runs scored. And ultimately, again, but you don't want to see back tightness kind of linger on moving forward here if you're Betts and the Dodgers. And then you have Cody Bellinger, who's still missing some time. He's dealing with a sore calf and was not in the lineup here once again on Wednesday. Now, Bellinger started this year 4 for 19 with 2 RBIs. He's only played in 4 games. He got taken out of Monday's game after a collision at first base, and there's no stretch fracture, no structural damage when it comes to Bellinger. So just dealing with some muscle issues, and hopefully the same for Mookie Betts out there in L.A., because without both of those guys in the outfield, that Dodgers lineup becomes a bit more human, and the Padres would certainly be looking to take advantage of that moving forward. Next, you got George Springer. Hey, man, his career there in Toronto is not off to a good start. He was rehabbing his way back from an oblique strain, did live batting practice, and then it was time to run the bases. He felt some tightness in his quad, pulled up, and as the day went on, he thought to himself, quote, okay, this is not just a cramp. And that's when he went and got an MRI, and they're waiting on those results to see how bad it is. But his quad's, acting up on him. So setback in his recovery, and Blue Jays fans are going to have to wait a little bit longer to see the debut of George Springer up there in Toronto, as they want to make sure he's totally healthy before they run him out there. A couple of other updates for Blue Jays fans. Left-hander Robbie Ray, he's going to throw a long bullpen session on Wednesday here. They're going to see how he reacts Thursday to Friday, kind of get near his timeline. He's close to 100%, or was close to 100% before his injury, but now he needs to kind of stretch back out, get that pitch count back up before he gets out there. And then Nate Pearson, a right abductor strain, is quote-unquote progressing. Montoyo recently came out and said, but there's no concrete updates on ultimately when he will be back here as well. So a lot of unknowns still taking place up in Toronto, which certainly is frustrating for Blue Jays fans who are looking forward to a nice 2021 with a handful of additions being made here. Max Fried for the Braves, he had a scare on Wednesday afternoon. He got hit in the right calf by a comebacker in the second inning against the Nationals, but it's come out that he doesn't plan to miss any time. He's going to be okay, get some treatment, but he was struggling a little bit on his time out. Fried allowed 5 earned runs, 8 hits over just 2 innings. Trey Turner took him deep for a 2-run home run. Just really wasn't sharp again, and man, the first couple of games, he was really unlucky against Philadelphia in opening day because kind of an erroneous stat here, but the one ball that Matt Fried put in play as a batter when he was hitting for the Braves was harder, had a higher exit velocity than any hit he gave up by the Phillies. He hit that ball 105.8, and his average given up by the Phillies was 83.2. And he somehow still got a no decision and was in line for the loss opening day until Pablo Sandoval hit a 2-run homer to tie it up. But the Braves eventually lost that game. So big picture, good news for you Braves fans as Max Fried looks to be ready his next time through the rotation after taking a line drive off the calf. Tim Anderson of the Chicago White Sox, he's headed to the 10-day injured list. This will retroactive go back to Monday with a left hamstring strain. He suffered the injury while running to first base on a ground out in Sunday night's game against the Angels. So again, even if you don't put a guy on the injured list right away, you wait a couple of days to see how it responds. If he doesn't play, you're able to retroactive those 10 days back to a certain date. So even if they waited till Friday or Saturday, it would retroactive for 6 days. Only need to be on the injured list for 4 or 5 days here moving forward. So with Anderson out, infielder Danny Mendick was recalled from the alternate site. He's had some nice years up there for Chicago, or a nice year last year, 26 for 107, hitting 243, 4 doubles, 1 triple, 2 homers. But, of course, losing Anderson's a big loss for the White Sox as they're trying to get things rolling here at the start of the 2021 season. We also have Trevor Rosenthal for the A's. He's going to a shoulder specialist on Tuesday. He's now considering thoracic outlet surgery, which is a procedure that takes around 3 to 4 months to recover from. He went on the 10-day IL. He'll soon be transferred to the 60-day IL, but tough luck for the A's as they are really getting beaten up via injuries here. And that's a team that you need to Google to check out injuries, because I don't even have time to go into that many injuries there with the Oakland A's and all the guys going on the 10-day injured list out on the West Coast. The big injury, of course, over the past day or two that you guys have heard about already, but is Fernando Tatis Jr. Apparently it's okay news for you Padres fans. You have averted disaster is another way to put it, because Tatis took a swing, he went down in a heap, and he looked like he was in a ton of pain. And I couldn't figure out what exactly was wrong with him. Like, did his shoulder come out of the socket? I mean, I've never taken a swing personally through all my experiences, baseball, college, travel ball. After that, like, just taking a swing and just experiencing the amount of pain that he was in. He really walked off holding his left arm, and he was diagnosed with a left shoulder subluxation, which is also known as a partial dislocation. So it kind of came out of the socket. And an MRI also revealed a partial tear in his labrum on the left side. So he hit the 10-day injured list. And, the hope there in San Diego is that he's going to be ready to go when he's eligible to come off the injured list. But I don't think he's going to be. I know it's not his throwing arm, but as a guy who's frayed his labrum and frayed his rotator cuff on his throwing arm, those are not injuries that come back in 10 days. And even though, again, he's not throwing with the arm, it's going to bother him when he's fielding. If he's got to go full extension to his forehand, full extension to his backhand, if he's got to raise his arm up to jump up and catch a line drive, there's going to be certain scenarios and situations where that's going to be extremely painful with a frayed labrum. Now, he's going to be doing rehab day in and day out, external rotation, internal rotation, lifts, things like that, but he won't need surgery, and that's what they've come out and said, and I agree with that just based on, myself not getting surgery. But I also think this is something that you're going to see bother him for longer than 10 days. Again, he's going to need continuous treatment, and he's going to kind of have not relapses, but he's going to re-injure that in the field potentially even more than swinging. Or he has a violent swing, so maybe it's the high pitch or the low pitch. Certain angles, certain velocities, certain trajectories are going to give him more trouble than others. And I think this is something that could linger on for the summer. But again, good news because he's not going to need surgery. The way he went down, they thought, he could be headed under the knife sooner than later. But it seems like he's going to be okay. Big picture there in San Diego. Ke'Bryan Hayes of the Pittsburgh Pirates. I talked to you guys on Monday's episode about how he left the game. He's already on to the 10-day injured list a couple of days in here. 3 days in, and it looks like he's doing limited baseball activities, according to the Pirates' director of sports medicine. He injured his left wrist while swinging in the first inning against the Cubs, but he hasn't played catch. He hasn't swung a bat yet, so he's doing a little bit of other stuff, working ground balls, things like that. So it'll be fascinating to see. I think he's going to be out a little bit longer than 10 days. Again, Pittsburgh, not exactly in a pennant race there in Pirate land. I don't think they have those aspirations this year. And with their top guy who was off to a nice start offensively, I don't think they're going to rush him back right away. So I think they take their time with Hayes. I think they're going to be, more safe, err on the side of caution and not rush him back. But it was, again, nice to see that it's not, shutting him down for the rest of the year or a very serious injury on that side of things. James Paxton and Jake Fraley for the Mariners. Paxton was placed on the 10-day injured list as well as Fraley. Paxton's dealing with left forearm strain. So not good for a left-handed pitcher dealing with the forearm strain this early into the season. And then you have Jake Fraley who has a left hamstring strain. Paxton left his debut against the White Sox in the second inning, so he only made it 2 innings for the Mariners after signing a 1-year $10 million deal for him. And then Fraley, he left later in that game after making a diving catch in the 5th inning. So Seattle off to a 2-3 start, a couple of injuries. Paxton was supposed to be one of their nice pieces in the rotation, and now it looks like he's going to miss some time, and that's a tough break for the Mariners out there in the Pacific Northwest. Kevin Kiermaier and Chaz Rowe of the Tampa Bay Rays. Kiermaier was placed on the 10-day injured list on Tuesday with a left quad strain. This is tough for the 3-time Gold Glove winning center fielder there in Tampa Bay. He left at Fenway Park in the 3rd inning. He thought it may have, a muscle just tightened up, but ultimately it looks like it is a strain of the quad. He's going to miss a couple of weeks. They're not going to rush it. It's not easy. Again, center fielder covers a lot of ground, so they don't want to rush him back before ultimately he's 100% healthy. And then Chaz Rowe was placed on the 10-day injured list on Monday. He could miss up to 12 weeks, so he's going to go into the 60-day IL here shortly with a right shoulder strain. He's going to be shut down for 6 weeks and then start to work his way back up. So the right-handed relief pitcher, tough break for the Rays there early in the year as well. For the New York Mets, J.D. Davis. He came out a Tuesday night game against the Phillies. He was hit on the left hand by Chase Anderson. Nobody knows exactly what's going on there. If, left hand contusion is obviously the word. Good news for the first x-ray. It looks like everything came back clean, so they're not going to have to worry about ultimately him missing a lot of time here. And then Joakim Soria for the Diamondbacks. He was put on the 10-day injured list on Tuesday with a strained left calf after he had to exit his outing against the Padres on Sunday due to the injury here early. So, again, a lot of injuries taking place across Major League Baseball, and there really is an excuse this year. I mean, last year we thought there'd be more injuries because they were rushing spring training. They were ramping things up, spring training 2.0, whatever you want to call it. Well, this year it was a standard year, standard practice, but a lot of guys pulling muscles, tweaking muscles. Maybe it's the transition from Florida to the cold weather. But again, some of the big names there: Aaron Judge, Mookie Betts, Cody Bellinger, Fernando Tatis Jr., Max Fried. A lot of these guys who not, your common baseball fan would know are potentially missing a little bit of time here moving forward. But ultimately nothing super serious with those guys across the board. So that'll do it here for the second segment of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kevin Mahalik. We'll step aside for a word from one of our sponsors and one of our sister shows, but when we come back, we're going to talk about takeaways from the first week. What are we getting from everybody out there? Stick around and find out.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Again, and thanks for listening to the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kevin Mahalik. Appreciate you guys tuning in today. Hey, wherever you're listening to this podcast, please rate and review the podcast, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you guys are checking this out. Rate and review, give us a like, give us a follow, whatever it is. I know it's different on every platform. Apple Podcasts down there, you guys can leave a comment. Give me your thoughts on, today's episode, past episodes, what's going on, who's your biggest surprise from the start of the regular season, who's your biggest disappointment, whatever it is that's happening out there. You guys can check us out and leave a review for us. We got a review on March 17th. I believe I read this one to you. That was the last one we got. So if we could get a new one up there, I'd certainly appreciate it. You guys leave a comment, rate and review the podcast. Again, that helps us continue to grow and shoot up the rankings as baseball is coming back here day in and day out. But now I wanted to talk to you guys about an updated standings, what's going on, surprises, takeaways, just across the board in Major League Baseball. So we'll start out in the American League here in segment number 3. In the AL East, the surprising number 1 team has to be the Baltimore Orioles. Baltimore at 4-2. They swept Boston on the road in Boston the first 3 games. Then they go to New York City. They do lose 2 out of 3 to the Yankees, but they were able to win Game 3 here Wednesday night by a score of 4-3 in 11 innings. So that was a nice win for them to get to 4-2 with Toronto, Boston, and New York at 3-3, all one game behind them. And Baltimore, I don't know who would have expected this at 4-2. Looking at some of the statistics here early on, they're led by Cedric Mullins out in center field. He's played in all 6 games. He's hitting .480 with a home run and 3 doubles early on throughout the season. Then you got Pedro Severino, Anthony Santander coming in the 270s. Santander's got 5 RBIs to lead the team here early on. But the Orioles just channeling 2020 and taking it back here, leading the league or leading the division here early on in the season. The Toronto Blue Jays at 3-3. This is a tough start for them because they took 2 out of 3 at New York and were feeling good about themselves. But then they went down to Texas and lost 2 of 3 to the lowly Rangers. So not a good trip down there to Arlington, playing in front of fans. We saw a jam-packed stadium down there in Arlington, so that was fun to watch. And, depending on how you feel about all that, but I was excited to see everybody back. Randall Grichuk leading the way for the Blue Jays. He's got a home run, 5 RBIs, tied for first on the team with Marcus Semien, and hitting 400 here early in the year for the 3-3 Toronto Blue Jays. You also have the Red Sox at 3-3. They swept the Tampa Bay Rays after getting swept by the Baltimore Orioles. So who are the Boston Red Sox? I mean, you got me. I don't know who the heck they are, but I do know that J.D. Martinez is still hitting the cover off the ball. The guy's got 11 RBIs through 6 games. That is absolutely outstanding. He's got 2 home runs and 6 doubles. His slugging percentage, .940, so his OPS is 1.4, so 1,400 OPS for Martinez, hitting .440, slugging .920. He's been absolutely impressive through the first week here, and he was even more electric in these past 3 games against the Rays. So on the flip side, the Yankees, again, they took 2 out of 3 from Baltimore after losing 2 out of 3 to Toronto. Find themselves at 3-3, a game behind those Orioles early on here. Offensively, again, Aaron Judge missing some time. He's leading the team with 8 hits early on, but he's going to be sitting out here moving forward. Brett Gardner, he's only had 10 at-bats, but he's 4 for 10 early this year. Judge was hitting .364 with 2 home runs, so that's a bigger loss for the Yankees than most people may realize. He's leading the team in RBIs, or tied for the lead with 5. He and Giancarlo Stanton both have 5 RBIs, and then DJ LeMahieu coming in and hitting .280 after leading the league in hitting last year. It'll be interesting to see if he's able to get hot and filter that one up again. The Tampa Bay Rays in last place right now, losing 4 straight after winning their first 2 games in Miami, including getting swept at Boston here over the last 3 days. Offensively, a lot of them got to get it going here. Got to pick it up. They're being led by Randy Arozarena, who's hitting .300, but he doesn't have any home runs yet, which was fascinating because of all the home runs he was hitting in the postseason last year. Manuel Margot's hitting .300, Brandon Lowe .267, but the rest of the team after that is really struggling there in the East. So surprised by Baltimore to be ahead, but it's just a logjam early on here in the American League East. Now we're going to talk about the Central, where the Minnesota Twins are in first place by a half a game over the Kansas City Royals. The Twins come in at 4-2 after winning both of their first 2 series. They took 2 of 3 in Milwaukee. Then they traveled to Detroit and won 2 of 3 in that series as well. So Minnesota, just a solid ball club, starting pitching, doing very well for them. Offensively, being led by Nelson Cruz, who in 6 games is hitting .471 with 3 home runs and 7 RBIs. He just continues to be the ageless wonder there in Minnesota, signing on again as the designated hitter, already with 3 bombs. Byron Buxton has 3 home runs in 5 games, which for him, he's hitting .357. This offense is just outstanding here in Minnesota and has certainly been carrying them. Especially with some guys out. Josh Donaldson, only 1 game, 1 at bat. He's 1 for 1 with a double. But again, coming off an injury, other guys have picked it up there in Minnesota, and they've just been excellent for a nice 4-2 start if you're a Twins fan. The Kansas City Royals at 3-2. They had a 2-game set against the Cleveland Indians and are now traveling to Chicago, but they split the 2 games with the Indians after winning 2 out of 3 versus Texas at home earlier in the year. Offensively, they got Michael Taylor having a nice start, as well as Whit Merrifield. Both of those guys hitting .400, as well as Nicky Lopez hitting .438. But Taylor's got 2 home runs. Whit Merrifield's got 3 home runs and 9 RBIs. So he's, carrying them offensively there in Kansas City. And again, they could be a surprise team. I don't think they keep this up for the rest of the regular season, but I do know Kansas City's probably a bit better than people realize there in the American League Central. The Detroit Tigers at 3-3 here early on. They won their first 2 games at Cleveland, lost their next 2, and then split their last 2 with the Twins. So losing 2 out of 3 to the Twins, but winning 2 out of 3 against the Indians early on. And the Tigers, better than I anticipated a week into the season. And you can thank rookie Akil Baddoo I mean, he's had an electric first week. He's got 2 home runs, 7 RBIs. He's got a grand slam, a walk-off single. He hit a home run on the first pitch of his major league career. He's hitting .455 through 4 games. Nomar Mazara hitting .278. Miguel Cabrera, he's only hitting .176 after going yard in game 1 there offensively. So Akil Baddoo is going to have to keep it up here offensively if they're going to want to kind of maintain this pace in Detroit and possibly be in the race here moving forward. The Chicago White Sox are 3-4. They lost 3 out of 4 on the road to L.A., the Angels. That's a tough opening series if you're Chicago, traveling halfway across the country out there to L.A. They then stayed out west to face the Seattle Mariners, and they were able to turn things around and win 2 out of 3 in Seattle there. But they did lose Tim Anderson to the injured list, so that's going to be a tough hole for them to fill there at the shortstop position. He wasn't hitting that great, offensively, only hitting .200 through 4 games, but still his energy and his presence, more well-known out there than just his offense. So Yermin Mercedes, who we talked about on Monday, started the year 8 for 8. He's fallen off a little bit since then. Let's see here. He's 5 for his last 15, if my quick math is fine. Still hitting .333 over that point. So his average on the year is .565 with 1 home run and 6 RBIs, 13 hits again offensively. You also have Luis Robert off to a nice start. 1 home run, 2 doubles, and he's hitting .286 here early in the year offensively. But guys like Jose Abreu hitting .207, Yohan Moncada hitting .182, Andrew Vaughn, who was supposed to be the designated hitter, hitting .154. That's led to kind of that dip, for the White Sox only being 3-4 here early on. Not great. Again, I have big expectations for them. I think they were the best team in the American League, and they're letting me down here through the first week. The Cleveland Indians, they are currently 2-3. Again, a quick 2-game set against the Royals after losing 1-2, going 1-2 against the Tigers right out of the gate. So Cleveland, they're struggling a little bit offensively. Jose Ramirez has been very good, hitting .350, 2 home runs, 4 RBIs. Of course, he's very good, consummate professional. Eddie Rosario hitting .250, but a lot of guys like Franmil Reyes hitting .211, Roberto Perez .182, Cesar Hernandez is hitting .111. He's 2 for 18 here out of the gate. So these guys are going to need more than that to really get going there in the American League Central. So the Twins off to a nice start, winning back-to-back series. The Royals and Tigers hanging around, overachieving here through a week. And then the White Sox at 3-4 bounce back nicely with a series win in Seattle after losing 3 of 4 to start the year out there in L.A. But the surprise in the American League, along with the Orioles being 4-2, but they swept the Red Sox, who aren't supposed to be that great either this year, has to be the Houston Astros. Houston currently at 5-1 in the American League West. They're leading that division out there. They swept the Oakland Athletics in 4 games to start the year. They then split with the Angels in a quick 2-game set, and now they return home to Houston to face those Athletics once again. So the Oakland A's are going to have a bone to pick with those Astros who came into Oakland and just beat the tail off of them here earlier in the year. And offensively, it's been fun to watch. Michael Brantley, he's played in 3 games, but he's 6 for 9 with a home run and 4 doubles, hitting .667. Alex Bregman, he's played in all 5 games, hitting .429, 2 home runs, 6 RBIs. Yuri Gurriel hitting .409. He's got a home run and 3 RBIs. You got Jose Altuve at .320. Yordan Alvarez at .308, Carlos Correa at .280. So this offense just continues to motor, man, and the Astros aren't going anywhere. And if this pitching staff can hold up and really come around, potentially get some guys healthy back in later in the year, Houston's going to be a problem to deal with in the American League. And basically told everybody, hey, yeah, we lost George Springer, but we're not going anywhere. We're still a team to mess with. The L.A. Angels in second place at 4-2. Again, taking 3 out of 4 from the White Sox and splitting here with the Astros over a 2-game set. They now get the Blue Jays coming up next here. Offensively, they've been led by Jared Walsh at first base. He's kind of taken over for Albert Pujols there at first base. He's hitting .412 with 2 home runs, 7 RBIs, and a triple. Mike Trout, he continues to rake, 368, 2 home runs, 5 RBIs, a double, 14 total bases. I mean, the guy just year in and year out is absolutely a problem out there. And he's just putting in work once again with an OPS over 1,200, just under 1,300. So stay up to watch Trout if you can. Shohei Ohtani doing a little bit of it all. He's hitting 250. He's already got 2 home runs in 6 games. He's also pitched, hit 100 miles an hour. So he was fun to watch. Albert Pujols really struggling, hitting 125. He does have a home run, but he is 2 for 16 here early in the year. So the old guys, Pujols and Miguel Cabrera, again, struggling a little bit here early on. The Texas Rangers at 3-3. Not a bad start for these gentlemen, winning 2 out of 3 against Toronto after losing 2 out of 3 against the Royals here early on. Again, playing in front of fans in that home crowd. Had to bring them some energy. Joey Gallo has been good to start off the year. He's hitting 300 with a home run and 4 RBIs, but Nate Lowe is the man down there in Texas. 3 home runs, 14 RBIs, and he's hitting 320. So the first baseman, Nate Lowe, raking for the Rangers. But I don't know if their pitching staff holds up and gives them what they need over the course of 162 down there in Texas. The Seattle Mariners at 3-3. They're hanging in there. 2 out of 3. They won 2 out of 3 against San Francisco. Lost 2 out of 3 against the White Sox. They got a nice series against the Twins coming up here, which will continue to be a solid barometer of ultimately where they stand as they're trying to find their footing here moving forward. Ty France at third base, leading the way early on, hitting 318, 1 home run, 3 RBIs. You got Mitch Haniger out in right field. But this offense really hasn't gotten going yet. Kyle Seager's hitting 250. J.P. Crawford's hitting 190. You got Evan White hitting 130. So, again, it'll be interesting to see if we can get these guys rolling and maybe Seattle can continue to surprise some people here moving forward. And then the biggest disappointment in the American League has to be the Oakland Athletics. I talked to you guys about it. They lost their first 6 games. Now it was a tough sledding. They had 4 against the Astros, the next 3 against the Dodgers. The Dodgers won the first 2 games of the series before Oakland was finally able to get their first victory here on Wednesday. But, man, 1-6 early on for Oakland for a team that had division aspirations. They got some guys to pick it up here offensively. Matt Olson hitting 235, no home runs. Jed Lowry, 217, no home runs. Matt Chapman, he does have 1 home run, but he's hitting 174. Mitch Moreland at DH, hitting 143. So the offense really letting down the A's right now in the American League, especially out west there. So surprise Orioles lead the American League East as of Wednesday night recording. The Twins solid in the Central. Houston 5-1. The Angels 4-2 off to a good start. And Oakland really disappointing out there in the West, starting out 1-6, but finally getting their first victory. The last team to get a victory goes to the Oakland Athletics here in 2021. But that'll do it for segment number 3 of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. We'll step aside one last time here for a word from one of our sponsors and one of our sister shows. But when we come back, we're talking National League. What's going on in that league? Stick around and find out.
Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
Welcome back to the 4th and final segment of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kevin Mahalik. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed today's episode. We're wrapping things up by talking about the National League here, and honestly, man, it feels good. We're starting in the National League East here, and the surprise team is my Philadelphia Phillies. And I did not see this coming here early on. Both the way the Phillies have started as well as the way the rest of the division has played out here early on. I mean, the Fightin' Phils are 5-1 here to start. They swept the Atlanta Braves, then taken 2 out of 3 against the Mets. They got shut out by Jacob deGrom over 6 innings, but ultimately the Mets bullpen blew it in their opener because the Mets were canceled that opening series, so this was their first 3 games. And the Phillies start now with 6 home games. They win 5 out of 6. Now they're traveling back to Atlanta. It is just, oh man, it is bliss here in Philadelphia. This bullpen has only given up a couple of runs. Yeah, they struggled in the one loss to the Mets. Vince Velasquez does what Vince Velasquez does. Vince do what Vince do type of thing out there. But everybody else has been fantastic. Rhys Hoskins is hot to start off the year. He's hitting .417. He's got a home run, 4 RBIs. JT Realmuto hitting .333 with a home run. Didi Gregorius, .304 with a home run. Bryce Harper, .263. He has yet to leave the building, but Alec Baum, .227, a home run, 5 RBIs. So, man, this pitching staff was fantastic. Zach Wheeler was excellent. Nola's been solid through 2 starts. Connor Brogdon's been excellent out of the bullpen. Connor Brogdon already has 3 victories already this year. He won the first game in extra innings. He got the victory here on Wednesday because Nola wasn't able to go 5, and then he won another one there in between. But the Fightin' Phils at 5-1 are certainly the surprise in the National League. Maybe the surprise in baseball here to start the year because teams, everybody had them picked 4th in the division. So with this bullpen and what's going on here, maybe a little something's brewing here in Philadelphia. Second place in the National League East is also under 500. It's the 1-2 Nationals tied with the 1-2 Mets. The Nationals and Mets, they had their first series canceled. The Nationals lose 2 out of 3 to the Braves, ultimately still putting them in second place. That's how bad that the Braves had been to start off the year here. But the Nationals through 3 games, I know you can't put a lot of weight into kind of the offensive stats, but especially since Steven Strasburg's leading the team in average because he's 1 for 1 on the year. Zimmerman's 4 for 9. Ryan Zimmerman, welcome back after missing last year, hitting .444. Starlin Castro, Victor Robles, each had a couple of hits. Juan Soto went 2 for 8 in the opening series. So Washington at 1-2. Then you got the Mets at 1-2. They face the Marlins next after losing 2 out of 3 to the Phillies. Offensively, Fransisco Lindor made his debut. He went, let's see here, he went 2 for 11. During the 3 games, he's hitting .182. He does have an RBI. Pete Alonso hitting .308. He was 4 for 13 with a home run during the game. So Pete Alonso trying to figure things out, get the mojo back here when it comes to the 2021 season. You then have the Atlanta Braves, who are 2-4. Again, they got swept by the Phillies to start 0-3. They lost their first game to the Nationals. They started 0-4, and you're thinking, oh gosh, what's going on here? But then 2 7-inning doubleheaders, they were able to sweep that on Wednesday against the Nationals to get their first 2 victories of the year. Next, they welcome the Phillies back to town, who, again, they owe payback to after being swept right in Philadelphia. Offensively, let's see here, Ronald Acuna Jr. hitting .304, 2 home runs, 4 RBIs. He had a much better series against Washington, but everybody else really struggling offensively still. I mean, Freddie Freeman, he's 2 for 18 to start the year. He does have a home run as one of the 2 hits. Marcelo Zuna, 2 for 20. No home runs. Ozzie Albies is 2 for 22. He's hitting .091. Dansby Swanson's hitting .143. Travis d'Arnaud is 4 for 20. So offensively for the Braves, that's what's put them in this hole here early on as their pitching's tried to keep them afloat. The Miami Marlins, they are 1-5 to start the season. They won 1 out of 3 against Tampa Bay, and then they were just swept by the St. Louis Cardinals at home as St. Louis went into Miami and put a hurting on the Marlins. So again, maybe that 2020 run was a bit of an outlier. Jesus Aguilar has been good to start the year. He's hitting .353. Starling Marte, who could be a trade candidate if the Marlins fade and are really not in it for the playoff push here. He's hitting .348 to start the year. Corey Dickinson hitting .235, but the Marlins off to a tough start with the Phillies' hot start. They're already 4 games out here after the first week in the National League East. But the Nationals and Mets in second place at 2.5 games back behind your 5-1 Philadelphia Phillies. Another big surprise in the National League has to be the Cincinnati Reds. They are 5-1 as well through their first 6 games. Now, again, they did sweep the Pirates, who are not very good, and people are going to beat up on them all year in the National League Central, but taking 2 out of 3 against the Cardinals was certainly a good start to the regular season. But offensively for Cincinnati, they just keep coming at you. I mean, Jonathan India in 6 games, he's hitting .476. 10 RBIs for him, a double and a triple. You have Nick Castellanos. Of course, you saw the back and forth with him this past week in the catcher and the pitcher, and he got suspended. He's appealing. So fascinating back and forth with Castellanos. He has 4 home runs and 7 RBIs, hitting .435. Tyler Stevenson, .455. Mike Moustakas is hitting .412. Tucker Barnhart's .385. Jesse Winkler, .375. Nick Senzel, .357. Tyler Naquin, .316. I mean, that was like 7 names hitting over 300, and I read you guys the Braves, and they had, 4 guys hitting under 200. So the Reds' offense here through the first week just locked in and is really carrying them here. The St. Louis Cardinals are 4-2. Again, lost 2 out of 3 to Cincinnati, but then went down to Miami and swept the Marlins. Yadier Molina having a nice start. He went yard against the Marlins here. Paul Goldschmidt continues to hit. He's hitting .308. Yadier Molina is hitting .316. Nolan Arenado's hitting .360. So he's found a little bit of juice there in St. Louis after coming over from Colorado. Tommy Edman hitting .280. So those 4 guys, Arenado, Molina, Goldschmidt, and Edman, carrying this team offensively and had themselves a nice weekend down there in South Beach. The Milwaukee Brewers are 3-3 at third place in the middle of the division. They lost 2 out of 3 to the Twins, but then won 2 out of 3 at the Chicago Cubs. So that's a nice series victory for the Brewers in Chicago. Offensively, Christian Yelich bouncing back nicely here through the first week. He's hitting .318 early on the year. Omar Narvaez behind the dish for him, hitting .467 with 2 home runs. Lorenzo Cain coming back after sitting out last year in the outfield. He's hitting .250 but does have 2 home runs. And then Travis Shaw leading the team with 6 RBIs. So the rest of the squad struggling offensively, but those 3 guys at the top have really been the difference. Now, when you get to the Cubs, they're 3-3, won 2 out of 3 against Pittsburgh, lost 2 out of 3 against the Brewers. It's their offense that just has not been very good this year. I saw a stat that as a team, the Chicago Cubs are hitting, it looks like 132, and all major league pitchers are hitting 151. So if you put together a team of all pitchers in the National League, they have a higher average than the Cubs, and the Cubs' leading hitter right now is Chris Bryant, who's hitting 200. They also have Eric Sogard hitting 200. Everybody else is below the Mendoza line. And somehow they've won 3 games if you're a Cubs fan. You almost need to look at it like you're lucky to be at 3-3 at 500 if you're a Cubs fan, the way this offense has produced. It's just, oh man, I can't believe they've won 3 games and scored 20 runs and only hitting 200 as the top guy. The Pittsburgh Pirates are 1-5 on the year. They won opening day, and since then they've lost 5 in a row. And Brian Hayes, he's out with an injury like we talked about. Doesn't look to be coming back anytime soon. So offensively, it could be a long year for them. But Phillip Evans at first base has been good. He's hitting .438 with 2 home runs. Now, he only has 3 RBIs, so there are a couple of solo home runs for him there. Wilmer Defoe at shortstop hitting .375, and Brian Reynolds out in left hitting .300. But everybody else offensively really struggling. Kevin Newman, Evan Frazier, both in the 100s there. Gregory Polanco, Eric Gonzalez, all those guys struggling offensively to get things going if you're Pittsburgh. So, again, going to be a long summer out there at PNC Park. Recording late here on Wednesday, it looks like the Rockies are going to beat the Diamondbacks in the nightcap, but both of those teams are at the bottom of the National League West, and the Rockies are going to advance to 2-4. Arizona's going to fall to 2-4, but we'll get to them in just a second. We're talking about the Dodgers now at the top here. They won 3 out of 4 against Colorado, and most recently 2 out of 3 at Oakland. Their pitching staff has been fantastic through a couple of starts. Kershaw, Bauer, Buehler, May, all those guys have been excellent. And then offensively, Corey Seager's off to a hot start. He's hitting .423. Max Muncy hitting .375 with a home run and 5 RBIs. You got Chris Taylor, .357. Mookie Betts, again, going to miss some time here, but off to a nice start, hitting .348. Justin Turner, still swinging it, still doing it. People thought he may be too old, may lose a step, but he's hitting .346 here offensively for them as well. So this Dodgers lineup is deep as we thought it was, and certainly going to be a solid team this year. Next up, you got the San Diego Padres at 4-3. They lost the series to the San Francisco Giants this week. Definitely a surprise loss for them. Again, lost Fernando Tatis Jr., so may have taken some wind out of the team's sails. But offensively, some other guys got to step up for him. I mean, you got Eric Hosmer hitting .391, 2 home runs, 7 RBIs, so a fantastic start for Hosmer. Leads the team with 9 hits. Jake Cronenworth, who finished second in the Rookie of the Year voting last year, he's off to another good start, hitting .320 with a home run here earlier. No, that's an RBI. He's got a 0 for home runs. I apologize. Will Myers has 2 home runs, hitting .318 early on. But Manny Machado off to a slow start. He's only hitting .200 as he's 5 for 25. Tommy Pham, .174. And then Tatis, before he got hurt, was only hitting .167. So the offense really hasn't come together yet for San Diego, which is why they dumped that series to the Giants here. Speaking of those Giants, they're in third place at 3-3. Again, 2 out of 3 from the Padres after losing 2 out of 3 to the Mariners here early on. But a nice series victory against the Padres, something that they're going to have to do if they want to hang around. And they can certainly thank Donovan Solano. He's hitting .409. 3 RBIs, 2 doubles here early in the year. Darren Ruff, a nice surprise for them. 3 for 9 in 4 games, kind of a spot start, pinch hitter type of routine. Evan Longoria still hitting here 10, 12 years later. I remember him in 2008 playing the Phillies in the World Series, so 13 years later, he's still hitting .318. He's got 3 home runs to lead the team, 5 RBIs, leads the team. Still playing a solid third base. So a great start by Longoria. And you got Buster Posey hitting .267 with 2 home runs here to start the year. So Buster having a nice start as well. Next, you got the Diamondbacks. They are going to lose tonight to the Rockies, but they are going to split that short 2-game set after only winning 1 out of 4 against the Padres. So they're going to fall to 2-4 and be tied for last place when it comes to the National League West. Ketel Marte, he's locked in early on, hitting .522 with 2 home runs, 5 RBIs. He's 12 for 23, not including Wednesday night statistics, but everybody else offensively, I mean, as Drupal Cabrera's 5 for 16, Carson Kelly 5 for 11, Stephen Voit has a couple of home runs early on, but Arizona, struggling, going to go to 2-4. And Colorado looks like they're going to win to improve to 2-4 after losing 3 out of 4 to L.A. to start the season. Again, the Rockies, really, they anticipate being in the bottom there. But Ryan McMahon at second base, he's hitting .444 with 4 home runs already, 7 RBIs, so he's been fantastic. Chris Owings in 5 games has been very good. But Trevor Story struggling, hitting .227. Charlie Blackmon only hitting .105. And they can't really get things going there offensively. So, surprises in the National League. Again, the Phillies have 5-1. Certainly a surprise. The Braves were a disappointment, starting 0-4, but they have won 2 straight. Those 2 teams match up once again. It'll be fascinating to see how that goes. The Cincinnati Reds offense, absolutely electric. They've won 5 in a row after losing opening day. They are just fantastic and fun to watch, so they're a surprise. And then, of course, the Dodgers and Padres, not a surprise, being atop the National League West here. But that'll do it for today's episode of the GSMC Baseball Podcast. It was a fantastic episode. We talked to you guys about the Lindor contract, a couple of trades that went down. There's a ton of injuries taking place across Major League Baseball. And then we got you guys up to date with the latest standings happening across the league out there. So let me ask you one last time before I head out here. Please rate and review the podcast. If you're still listening, I mean, come on. How easy is it to hit that 5-star button down below on Apple Podcast or Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you're listening, as well as follow us on social media. so you can stay up to date with all the latest information. But that'll wrap it up for today. It is Thursday, April 8th. That's the date. Almost messed it up here. It is late Wednesday. I appreciate you guys listening in today. Enjoy the rest of your week, everybody. I'll talk to you guys again on Monday.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.